Preludes 14 has arrived, and here are my first impressions. We got a lot of great content in this update, and I really want to be happy about it. The new siege at Mirafuir is beautiful and has a new type of boss encounter that is really fun to play. The Fallen Sky Tower dungeon is also gorgeous and a bit short for now, but if I recall correctly, this will be expanded in the future. Orlic's new questline is going to be extremely good for new players, and it has some great benefits for veteran envoys. Duello and all the new weapons look pretty cool, and improvements to the votive system should make leveling them a bit easier. I'll be streaming a ton on Twitch this weekend to give you my perspective as I level them up, so come check it out if you want to see the new equipment in action. A new hidden side quest can be found at the Tower of Pensives, and it has a ton of great rewards, so definitely have a look. Thanks to Dyson Vellum for telling me about it. And of course I'm excited about the fashion improvements. Tinting is much better on all items, including our hairstyles, and once I've got those new armor sets crafted, I am absolutely going to update my wardrobe. However, there are some issues in this update. Joinery got reworked again, and I think these changes are going to be good in the long run, but they don't feel like they were ready to be in this update. I am very happy that bows got a base charge rate boost through a change to the Ready Mark combat art, so losing the charge rate from Quicksilver is just not an issue. But our new joineries have tons of bugs, and the gold-trimmed pip icons are going to cause some confusion. Any attunement stronger than 5 pips gets this icon, but that means we can't actually tell how strong the attunement is by looking at the weapon. We'd have to remember what the base attunement is and then mentally add that to the strength of the blessing from the joinery. I do see why they needed a new system for showing attunement strength, but when so much player feedback involves asking for more information about the game and how its mechanics work, I'm not sure why they gave us a new UI feature that offers us less information. And unfortunately, this is not the only change that goes against player feedback. After the most recent dev stream, many of us took to the forums and official Discord to beg DE not to make runes activate on heavy attacks. They did it anyway. You build rune charges by pulling smites, and you spend rune charges with fully charged heavy attacks and fully charged shots. To DE's credit, they did make some changes to Flyblade such that the weapon I thought would have the worst time with heavy attack activation is actually now the best. Flyblades no longer have a perfect throw window, so rune activation is now the only thing a fully charged Flyblade's heavy attack input will do. I love that there is player-controlled activation for Flyblade runes that only does that one thing. That said, even Flyblades struggle with this new rune activation system because once you start your blades orbiting, you cannot activate your rune until the orbit ends. There is no way to cancel an orbit, so you're just locked out of rune use until the orbit is over. This is not good. And yet, it's still the best we have in P14. If your playstyle favors light attacks, you now must incorporate some heavies into your combat in order to use runes. If your playstyle favors heavy attacks, you now must incorporate some light attacks into your combat in order to save rune charges. The slower your heavy animations, the more cumbersome rune activation is. On Flyblades, for example, combat flow is just fully halted when you want to activate a rune. It's great that we can choose when to use runes, but this massively disrupts the flow of combat. And worst of all is bows. I love games that let you draw back the bow by holding down a button and then release your shot by letting go, because on a visceral level it feels more similar to shooting a real bow. It helps the whole experience feel more real, especially when I'm tracking targets, holding a shot, and waiting for that one right moment to release. It's a fantastic feeling, and it's a huge part of what made Soulframe archery feel so good. But now, if I want to save a rune charge in a bow, I don't get to decide when to release. The bow's charge rate makes that decision for me. Or I can just plink away with light attacks while I wait for the right moment to use my rune, but then I'm back to fire on click instead of fire on release, and that feels just as bad. And it's not just my subjective preferences that make this such a problem. Fully charged shots don't just deal significantly more damage than basic shots, they also fly faster and straighter. So if you're trying to hit a distant target, charging your shots makes that much easier. So at a very close range, you might want to fire off quick basic shots at nearby enemies, but at mid and long range, charge shots are almost always the better option. But now I lose that option as soon as I want to bank a rune. I was so excited about players having a choice in when to activate their runes and was really encouraged by all the community feedback after the dev stream, since DE is normally so great about listening when the community is nearly unanimous on things like this. And yet here we are. Heavy attack rune activation is not good. Bows definitely have it worst here, but even magic and melee weapons are now unable to break enemy block with heavy attacks without spending a rune charge, and the block will mitigate the rune damage. And DE, please don't fix this by just making rune procs bypass blocks. That is not the solution we're asking for. Please give us a keybind for rune activation. I honestly don't understand why we don't already have one. Like, look, I like kicks, I think they're neat, and I love that Garen Rude's headbutt has the antlers back, but why do we have a separate keybind for kicking but not for rune activation? Runes are much more significant in combat than kicks, and while I do not think that we should have to choose between them, I will happily sacrifice my kick keybind for a rune activation keybind. Charge shot activation feels so bad, I'm happier when I just ignore bow runes altogether. So if giving us a unique rune activation keybind is something that will take a long time for DE to implement, and replacing the kick keybind is something that too many players would dislike, I'd honestly rather they just roll back these changes and give us back our old runes while we wait for a better interface. That's how much I dislike this new system. Maybe it's not as bad for other weapons, and that's fair, and I'm sure DE will be looking at how this affects all players, not just archery enthusiasts, but it really is that bad for bows. Many of the runes themselves have also changed, and most of those changes are either pretty good or fine, but it really doesn't matter when activating the runes is such a problem. I will go into those changes in more detail in a future video, but I wanted to get my first impressions of P14 out to you tonight. I will definitely take a closer look at P14 runes once the community has had a chance to give some more feedback and DE has had a chance to respond to that feedback. So there is a lot to enjoy in Preludes 14, and again, I'll be streaming Soulframe all weekend, so if you have questions or need help, please come by and ask away. But I'm preserving my peace by just ignoring runes on most weapons, especially bows, and if you're thinking about hopping into game to check out the new release, I highly recommend you do the same. This update has a lot of really good new content to play through, so it's a bit of a shame that rune activation is putting such a damper on all that. But combat is how we interact with the game, so that's inevitably going to have the largest impact on player experience. I sincerely hope that DE listens to feedback on this issue and we all hear good news when they return from the weekend. But for now, those weapon fragments aren't going to farm themselves, so until next time, happy hunting!